Welcome, everybody. It's really great to be here. I think it's been a while since all of us has kind of come back from Taiwan. I think I was back here in 2019. So you gave a great introduction. We're going to jump in just a little bit more. I think we'll go ahead and introduce ourselves. But we've actually known each other for a long time. And I think maybe one of the things that might be a little bit more fun is we'll have some discussion topics. I'll ask you guys what you guys want to know from us. Some people tell us we've seen a lot of stuff. So I'll have us introduce ourselves. And I think the fun thing that people may not know is I think Patrick, you're the person we all know. So I'm going to start with Kevin. And why don't you introduce yourselves, talk a little bit, just introduce yourself, and then also add in like, how do you know Patrick, which might be pretty fun. Yeah, or sorry, not how do you know Patrick, but your first impression of Patrick when you met him and how you met him.
Okay, I'll start there. I met Patrick at a bar in San Francisco called The Modernist, which is a members club, an old school DAO, so to speak, physical place. He was wearing a shirt, a No Doubt shirt, I think, and we started talking about anime. And I was like, oh my God, this dude's like actually watches a ton of content. Rotten Tomatoes co-founder. And so we hit it off there. We're talking about anime, talking about ska. We have big ska fans as well. And so we connected over music, content, media, basically. And just kept hanging out from there. But we met through friends over there. I actually met you before I met Pat. And I probably met you before I met Pat, actually.
Oh, really?
Fun fact, Kabam, Holly's company, bailed out Twitch. If it wasn't for Kabam, Twitch actually might have died. And Kun and I, back in 2013, 2012, actually talked about merging Twitch and Crunchyroll. Another fun fact.
He's the founder of Crunchyroll. I don't know if it wasn't
any anime fans out there.
Yeah.
Okay, so we quick start. Kevin Lin, currently co-founder, CEO of Metatheory. A lot of our teams in town. We have a team in Taipei. Come join us. Formerly co-founder and CEO of Twitch. I built all the non-product and tech teams out there. Taiwan was actually our first, headquarters. It was our first employee out here, Mona Hu, who's still there, running the Taiwan team. It was really our anchor position in Asia. We eventually expanded to Japan, Korea, Southeast Asia, et cetera. Excited to be here. Excited to talk about Web2, Web3 stuff.
Awesome. Why don't you go ahead next, Kun?
Yeah, I think it's anime apparently is a theme here. So my first impression of Pat was founded and was CEO of Crunchyroll, we would stay pretty late in the office, and then every once in a while I would see this guy in our office. I'm like, who is this guy? And apparently he was like close friends with a lot of the folks who were working at Crunchyroll. And then over time we just got to talking and realized that he's an even bigger anime fan than me, than most people. That's how we got.
Say I'm the crunchiest Crunchyroll member.
Yeah, if you need an anime recommendation, just ask him. He's good. He's like encyclopedia. I founded Crunchyroll and most recently founded an AI company using machine learning to detect when there's toxicity in games. We actually started working with Web2 games and most recently have been working with Web3 games and communities to help them make their communities a more positive experience.
I'm Holly. I was one of the founders of Kabam. We did mobile gaming. You probably didn't hear of Kabam, but you probably heard of our games. We made games for Marvel, Hobbit, Fast and Furious. Basically, if it was PG-13, we made a movie for it. I met Patrick because you came to our office for a football game, and we had invited all of folks who went to the college and come to the football game. And I remember you're wearing your Rotten Tomatoes T-shirt, and I was like, "Hey, I know that." And the funny thing is I said, "I know somebody who worked there," and he said, "Oh, who is it?" And it happened to be his 7th grade friend and like college roommate, right? Your freshman year roommate. Yeah, and then after that, I have PKO on there, but I'm gonna let Patrick introduce PKO there too.
Yeah, so I guess I've been doing communities for a really long time. I mean, back in high school, I actually ran a bulletin board system with my brother, which is like a website for like one person at a time. And so we have this thing called PKO. It actually stands for Private Keep Out. And it was a community for notable tech founders. All of us are in it. And we would essentially do like these 20-person dinners and things to just get people together to connect. We've been doing that for over 10 years. Holly has actually been one of the admins in the group with me to help run it. And so we kind of were doing that, and we sort of expanded into doing PKO investments, where we would invest at the intersection of tech and entertainment. We started that in March of last year, and it started from our tech founder group. We gradually added more people in, and the whole group, the syndicate, is basically 800 people. We've invested into 45 companies, raised over 35 million for those companies. So yeah, and then a long time ago, I did Rotten Tomatoes with some friends. I don't know if Steven is here, but there's a couple of us, and we did that, and we've always been, I think all of our companies have been at the intersection of tech and entertainment in Web2, and then I guess now we're looking at Web3 as well.
Yeah. And that's kind of a good kind of jumping off point, because we all invest together in PKO investments. And one of the things we've been looking at a lot is in Web3. So I'm very curious. I think each of us has had some funny moment in moving from Web2 to Web3, where, especially as it comes to community, like how things have been so different. Super curious, where, for you guys, where is it like broken your brain, or it's been super different? I could go first. So I've come up with the questions and you guys can respond to it. So I definitely remember a couple things. So for us, like Web2, we needed to get a lot of audience. We have communities in our games that were incredibly important. And I just remember I went to NFT New York conference, and there was a company we were trying to invest in called Jadu. They do these jetpacks. And it was just such a crazy experience, because when I met them, I met the people who are running it. First, the guy was really young, and I felt like the uncoolest person, not because I was old, but because I didn't have one of these jetpacks. So there was this big fervor around, like, oh, you had to really be part of this community. And certainly for them, like, what really kind of broke my brain was that you didn't need a massive amount of people to really create like a sustainable project. Within 20 minutes, they sold out in $7 million, was it $7 million? I mean, it was just nuts on how much money they were able to make in just such a short amount of time. So for me, I was like, oh, this is like really interesting on how it's the community building and how it's like kind of just been really different. I don't know if you guys have had similar experiences. We haven't even talked about what it means when they buy into it and what it does to community. But
I remember when we all got in. I think Kevin got into NFTs a lot earlier, but I think the three of us were all together, and we all bought into Pixel Beasts, which is kind of a dead project. But I think it was Yohei. He was trying to understand like NFTs, so he made a project just for fun on his own. And we all kind of minted together.
We literally had like a minting party.
We were in Zoom with him.
All of us.
So he could walk us through.
You were like
which is actually a great way of onboarding your audience. Is like we got into Web3 because one of our friends was into Web3, and they were like, I'll handhold you through this experience. I don't think we would have gotten in if we didn't get handheld and be like, you know what, here's how you make your MetaMask, here's the button you press, here's how you deposit fiat and convert it into ETH. And so I feel like there still needs to be a lot more of that word of mouth that needs to be onboard the next set of users.
Yeah, I think that's been really the fun part of NFT. So we launched ours, Dustbreakers, in end of December last year. So just about a year ago. And it was fun. It was a really fun process. But me I bought into a lot of projects. I have a lot of bags that are dead. I just hold. That's the problem. I hold forever.
I do that too.
Oh, God, it's so bad. I do the same with pretty much everything. So I would say the power of small communities is what really drew us into this whole thing, right? You really can build a business on a small community. My experience with Twitch was a very large community. You needed mass audience because a big part of our business model was advertising, and you only make money through advertising, which is a very high margin, very annoying business to be in. But you need tonnage. Basically, you need to have a lot of people so you can go convince a brand and say, hey, we have important people to you, here's why. And that industry became increasingly data-driven. And so the appeal of Web3 is, well, you don't really need to rely on data. You rely on the power of a network, right? One by one. Your friends bring you in, you get rugged, you get upset, you move on, you get rugged again, and you don't learn your lesson. But I think the most frustrating part and the biggest difference between building Twitch and building Web3 with Web3 company so far is at Twitch, basically, 100% of our audience, our creators, our fans, wanted to be there because they wanted to see this thing exist. They wanted this whole ecosystem to grow. They wanted the community to be successful. That's not true for Web3. It's full of speculators. And that is a very frustrating experience because now that we've launched our NFT project, we talk about this constantly internally. Like, what do? It's basically a stock. You're basically public, and you feel this obligation to your holders, some of whom are complaining constantly. Like, why is the floor not higher? What's going on? Where's the hype? What's the roadmap? And they don't actually care. They're just there for speculation. And so you have this audience which is actually antagonistic to you. If you're thinking long-term as a builder, which we are, and many are now, it is an antagonistic relationship, which is very odd. Not that Twitch people don't, troll us and, annoyed with decisions that we used to make, but it was for the longer-term goal of let's make this thing big, let's make gaming cool, let's make creator economy a thing.
Yeah, have you found any ways to fight all of that?
Yeah, I'd say we have a lot to do on the community building side. We talk about this a lot too. We're going to beef that up quite a bit. A lot of us, myself included, especially need to get into Discord and Twitter a lot more. It's just not my nature to do that. But we have to learn. We have to adapt and learn. What we did in the beginning was we tried to find those community nodes, those holders, those believers that were there for long term, and really empower them, embrace them, talk to them. A lot of Adam, I'd say, I don't know if he's in the audience, but did a lot in Discord in the early days just to make sure that those people felt really welcome and there when we were a very small team. And that's what you have to do. You have to keep engaging with those people and try to eliminate the people who are fudding and just there because they want to make money. And so it's weird to think about because you look at these huge projects that pop and they'll have suddenly 100,000 Twitter followers, most of whom are bots, but it looks really good. We actually decided from a policy perspective, and community building is all policy, right? Product as a part of it was all policy, that we would kick those out. So if we saw inactive Discord members, we would boot them. And so our Discord fluctuates. Sometimes it's 16, 20,000, sometimes it's 9, 10,000. And because we're kicking people out who are not active anymore so that we ensure that the community members who are there because they want to be and not sort of in and out to see, where's the alpha? What's going on? And same with Twitter. We would eliminate a lot of what were obviously bots. And so that's a hard decision, right? Because we don't look as big as others, but we feel like our community is just a little bit tighter as a result.
Yeah, I've definitely heard that. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry.
I was just saying, for Web3, I feel like also the marketing, the way, since you just need a small group of true believers, the marketing is also very different. Even though it's on Twitter, but there's so many events, it's a lot of one-on-one onboarding on so many fronts, but then you're also constantly fighting strange bots in Discord.
We did so much hand-holding, and these are very sophisticated people.
You could have been hand-holding a bot. Did you know that?
That's true. These days, you really have no idea. But friends who are founders of legendary game companies struggled to buy these things.
Oh, that's so true.
And they lost them, too. They'd fall for one scam bot in Discord, and they're all gone. It was sad, right? It's the user experience is still quite bad.
The collections I find kind of interesting is 9gag. They have MVP. Those people are buying in, but Ray is in the Discord on Twitter every single day answering tons of questions. And that one is actually still kind of a speculator community, but I think because he's so engaged, that one's interesting. I think Carl Troy's doing 247 Comics. He just had a badge that came out. He one by one onboarded. I did a call with him. He sold me on it. I was like, yeah, this sounds cool. Arc Stellars. I like that strategy of one by one, same thing. They onboarded us. They're building community first. I think they know everyone that's a stellar. And I think that strategy to me makes a lot of sense versus just hey, let's put out this NFT. Whatever random people happen to buy it, which is 90-something% speculators. And this is our community, our community. But a community of speculators, all you end up doing is fighting FUD every day. And I actually like this one by one handcrafted approach.
I feel like that's a big shift in terms of the NFT side and community building, which is in the very beginning, everyone was launching an NFT collection, primarily maybe driven by art, and just hoping that it's going to be a successful mint. And if it's successful mint, then, well, now they have to figure out what is the actual utility. But the community that showed up are just people who are interested in the speculative aspect, or maybe some are in the collectability or the art aspect. It feels like the Web2 approach of that was better, because Web2 approach was here's a product. Okay, now you're showing up because the product actually has utility or has value to you, and then the community forms around the product. Now the Web3 version of that is, well, what is product in Web3? And I think we've heard probably from multiple people, it is the community. So what is the community, right? And we're seeing projects where the community is like first and foremost what the value, right? Like a community is really around people who have a common set of interests. And if you're just launching with art and NFT, that's probably not enough interest to keep that community together. So it's better to figure out what is the community that you're trying to build and what is the interest that they actually will gravitate towards, and then figure out like, okay, what is the NFT you want to put out against that?
It's all super reversed. It's kind of interesting going in where you're focusing on this one-on-one, and there are a lot of great projects that try to do that, but there's also like the ability that you need to grow and pull things in. And it's just interesting. I was thinking about for you guys, Kevin, at Metatheory, or just any project that releases something. I know you say this all the time. You're like, it's game over if it doesn't mint out. Like the stakes are actually a bit higher in Web3. It seems that way. Because I was like, oh, this is interesting. But it's such a small group of people in terms of failures. And I started thinking about it some more. And I'm like, oh, well, you know what else has a 98% failure rate is Web2. So I'm super curious, which one do you think has like a much bigger, like is more of a rug pull, really? Like Web3 or Web2? I don't know.
I mean, I think, so Web2, you start a company, you typically raise from investors. Right? These are professional people whose job it is to deploy money, and they understand the risks. They know that 98% of the companies they invest in are going to fail. Web3 is retail, is people, right? And so I think it's probably worse in a sense where people who aren't necessarily able to afford a thing, which means they shouldn't be speculating, but they do it anyway because they fall for something, whether it's a friend or something they saw on Twitter or otherwise. And so it harms a lot more people, I think. It makes it a little bit worse. Again, you're sort of taking from generally professionals in the Web2 world. So I think it's a little worse. It still feels bad, and even like NFT projects not minting out.
So
like
public,
and if they do mint out, there's still the failure rate. Like Web3 companies are not going to be immune to statistical probability of a team of people failing at something, right? And so that's just going to be, that's just human nature. That's just what happens when you try to build things. And so you still have more failure rate than I think you'll, feel right now because these projects are generally so new. Most things only started about a year ago. So I think to me, harming more people who like just kind of fall for it, it feels worse, I think.
But has that changed like your iteration? So in Web2, one of the biggest things that we try to do, particularly in product iteration, is you want to launch and then you iterate and you launch, and it's such a low cost. But now everything's such high cost actually. Has that, especially for you guys that are building in Web3, have you seen the way, does it change anything? Do you think twice about like that product feature? Does it slow you down?
Not particularly. I mean, well, I think for us at least, for games, it's just a slower build process. There's a lot more to do. You have to we're very story driven.
Yes, games in itself is just much
So it's quite different from Twitch. Twitch, we could just put something out there and iterate, right? We get feedback immediately. We could do A/B testing. We could do user feedback sessions on like, hey, and with Twitch, what was easier for us was gathering product feedback from creators. Creators were our core customer. We identified that after many years of not doing that. I realized, okay, our customer base is creators. They also represent and are the voice of their communities, which are viewers and chatters. So it made it a little bit easier to figure out what it is that we needed to build. Whereas games is just, you're sort of guessing. You can do a lot of user research, which our team is doing, but it is still a lot of guesswork on what is fun versus solving a problem. So it's a little bit harder, a little riskier too, right? Because if you put something out that's incomplete or broken, FUD starts to happen again.
Exactly. Yeah.
And now the whole team feels bad because people are selling what's going on, like versus Web2 where it's just like, oh, you get bad feedback and you feel a little bit bad, but it doesn't feel as big.
Yeah, it's hard to iterate a lot faster.
Yeah. I feel like for Web3 at least the pendulum swung way too far, right? Like a lot of the projects were funded by hype from the community, clearly, right?
Yeah. It's like one Twitter announcement changed the whole world.
But like, if you think about it, there's two sides to it. There's the project side, people running the projects and building them and building a community around them, and then there's the audience side or fan side or the community side. From the audience perspective, I think clearly we all have to do better diligence. I mean, with professional investors, it's not like they're well, maybe exception of FTX, they're not FOMOing into these projects, right? Web2 investors have a lot of diligence. They have checklists. They look at the team that are docs. They look at have this team work together. What is their history? What have they shipped? They look at all of that. Whereas with Web3, there's clearly not that level of diligence for almost every project. And on the project side, I feel like a lot of times the expectation of maybe the team or maybe the community is that, okay, these people, they should be doing this 24/7. They should be answering to me. They should be always available. Like, I don't know if that's really the right expectation. And with Web3, I feel like it's something that you actually can start dabbling in slowly. The cost of building anything these days is so much less expensive than we started. When we started, we literally had to go build our own web servers, like hardware. We had to go drive it into the data center and stick it into the power sockets. And now it's like anyone can actually build very simple applications that have actually a lot of utility. So I would love to see more Web3 projects where it's like, well, it's a nights and weekends project. Everyone knows it, everyone's clear, and let's deliver value first, and then worry about the NFT or tokens later. But let's build trust first.
I think with Web2, basically when you're running a company, the goal early is to get product market fit. And so, yeah, you'll see, I wouldn't call them rug pulls, but basically companies that, for whatever reason, they might try a couple times, they might pivot a few times, and they just can't find product market fit. Usually they'll go under. I think with Web3, it's like that time you release your collection or something like that, then you have product market fit at that point or you don't. And then if you don't have it, it's a little bit hard to claw your way back. I would say, I love to talk about focus, but I think a lot of Web3 projects tend to be less focused because they're trying to have this roadmap to promise all these things that they're going to do, and so they put everything in the roadmap, and that actually makes it sometimes harder to find product market fit.
Or it's even harder because you're like, when in Web2 you could throw something out, you could iterate, you could play around, but with Web3 you don't. So you're like, okay, I have to have all these other options just in case, and think about what it would be. So I'm going to pause right here for a second, and I'm super curious if anybody does have anything, any questions that you have from us. We wanted to make it a little bit more of a roundtable and chit chat. We have a lot of experience, which just means that we've failed a lot. That's all.
Or we're old.
We're old too.
Boomers.
We failed a lot and old. But if not, I'm curious, what do you guys think in terms of, we talk about Web3 versus Web2. What do you guys think is a bigger rug pull? Theranos, I would say, or FTX, but that might be a little too close to home. Terra Luna.
That's all retail too, right?
Yeah, I think that is one of the things that's harder, like what we talked about, where it's like, I think Theranos was a bit of a kind of, it really was quite dangerous what they were doing in many ways, and it's probably more of a rug pull in terms of not just that, it could have harmed people, and a lot of things in Web3 is hard on the retail.
We always have this, at Crunchyroll, we had this mindset, which is under promise and over deliver. So that means whether it's to our investors or to our users, you want to under promise, but you want to over deliver. So you're building trust along the way. I think if that's something that more projects can embrace, I think it will be healthier long term. The problem is a lot of these projects, whether it's Web2 or Web3, are way ahead of their skis, right? Like they overpromise and then they underdeliver, and then that just creates this cycle, right? So I know it's hard because when you're in the moment,
build hype.
Yeah, when you're in the moment, hype is right. It's almost tangential to underpromising, right? Yeah. But and it's just so easy to be addicted to that. But at some point, you got to build a thing, right? So. Yeah. It might be better to just take it slow and steady, especially right now there's a bit of a bear market. Honestly, I think that's a great thing because I think there's so many distractions that go away when you have to focus, when you have limited resources, when everything outside is raining, and you just gotta close the blinders and then just build.
Yeah.
Well, I think one thing also is with Rotten Tomatoes or a lot of these projects, things always take longer, probably twice as long, costs twice as much as you expect. It's just that's just normal. And the difference though with Web3 is people own it. They want to see everything immediately, and they'll immediately value what you did. through your floor price and all that stuff. And so there's just way more
one number.
pressure. Whereas, okay, we didn't get the feature done in time. Like, they don't know when the feature's supposed to come out. If we happen to take 3 months instead of 1 month, that's fine. When it comes out, it comes out. But I think in Web3, it's just they don't have that patience, and everything's always valued. And so it's like once you go public, and you suddenly have to think short term to like please these investors. That's what's happening in Web3, and it happens so early on that it's like I think it makes things unnatural as a company to be kind of dealing with like public pressure when you're just trying to find product market fit. It's really weird. It's like you're IPO'd, but you're basically pre-seed, like pre-product market fit. And I think that's something that Web2 has the advantage of. We can just build, we can iterate, experiment in private, and not have that external pressure.
If you were to rebuild Rotten Tomatoes in Web3, like how would you do it? Because you're right, Web2 we had a lot less pressure, in some ways, which is strange.
I don't know how we would rebuild Rotten Tomatoes around ratings and stuff. I guess maybe you could incentivize people to help get data, help gather information, help review, and leverage Web3 to incentivize and the community to contribute. Maybe something like that.
Well, would you ever let people write their own anime? I mean, that would be probably the content creation by fans.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the challenge with Web2, and as a Web2 founder, like I feel after leaving Crunchyroll, is that in the Web2 space, it's essentially a monopoly in every vertical, right? Like Google owns search, like you can't displace that. How do you beat them? And with Web2, the relationship is the platform owns the relationship with the content creator and the consumer. And sometimes the content creator and the consumer are the same person in like a social media. But it's absolutely the platform that dictates that relationship. And they extract majority, if not all, the real economics that's coming out of it. I think the value of Web3 is now you can actually create a different type of relationship between the consumer and the creator. And that doesn't necessarily need to involve the platform in the same way. And then the community, which is the combination of the creator and the consumer, can now dictate the terms in which they want to have that relationship, separate from the platform. Now, that said, I don't think that you're going to beat Disney at the way they are making content and distributing content. They're the best possible machinery and version for doing that version of what they're doing. But I think the Web3 version of that product, of a Disney or a Crunchyroll, will have to look different. And the output of that machinery will have to look different. So it's additive, it's not competitive.
I mean, he talked about displacing the platform. Like Twitch is the platform. How would you have you even thought about how you do it for Web3?
Twitch is about as close to a naturalized Web3 platform as you can get, right? A subscription is essentially an NFT. We talked about this a lot in the beginning of, do we create sort of generational subscriptions where you're first, right? You're one of the first 100 supporters, and that has some amount of value. In general, we did you get everything in the future, right? And then if you're the next, we didn't really do it that way, but we sort of assigned a number now so you've been a subscriber for 5 years. You're like the hardest core user, right? But it's non-transferable. Bits is essentially a token. Bits. So the way Bits works is it's a donation tool inside of chat. Users can buy bits at a premium. Every bit is worth a penny. The only person that can extract a bit out of the Twitch ecosystem is a creator, and so there's no real speculation around it, right? No, there was some speculation because of other products we built, like we had this watch ads to earn bits thing, which was totally abused by bots or people that built bots. But by nature, it was a working system. Right? It was an easily understood system. The value of a bit was very understood by the creators and by the audience, and the extraction mechanism was very clear and essentially regulated. It wasn't anybody could just take bits and take it away. You had to be a partnered creator. You had to sign a contract in order to do that. But it's a pretty natural. It's a natural adaptation, really, for Web3. I just wanted to say real quick, we should announce our new PKO NFT project, Sandbags. But I just want to comment on that. I think it's really important, and I think you're starting to see.
It's not a real project, guys.
I think it's not a real project, but like I think what was said earlier was really important. Is like it does take time to build this stuff. So any of you that are out there, you should see NFTs as it's a great fundraising mechanism. It does change your relationship with the audience. It's something we're constantly trying to understand. Like, what does it mean to have thousands of owners out there? If we tell our equity investors something, should we tell our holders the same thing, right? What's fair? What's alpha? And so it does sort of change your methodology of building and thinking, but slow and steady and under-promising and over-delivering generally is the right way to build stuff. Web3 sort of demands something different, but it may not be correct. So just wanted to say that.
Yeah, well, with that, thanks so much, Kevin. We're like, well, okay, do you guys maybe do, 2 seconds left. 1 second, done.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much,
you.
guys.